What's up, guys? Today I want to talk about sacred geometry. First, let me give a couple little disclaimers. I am not, per usual, an expert or authority on this topic at all. Most of the information I get about sacred geometry comes from Melchizedek. And these books, The Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life, Volume 1 and Volume 2. I have looked at other sources for information and learned from other sources, but that's my main go-to. I find Drunvalo to be a very good source of information on a plethora of topics. You can find him on YouTube, but I will say this. Drunvalo can be way far out there. Like science fiction far out there. I personally don't have a problem with that because I can be kind of far out there sometimes myself. And typically, even if what he's saying doesn't resonate with me and I don't fully understand or buy into it, I usually find it interesting anyway. So you may or may not want to check out Drunvalo. Next disclaimer. I am not a fan of math. We don't jive. We don't get along very well. Having said that, that is not a problem for sacred geometry. I adore sacred geometry, and I have never had these two issues clash. I don't find myself needing to do math to work with or understand sacred geometry. I will say, however, that you can get so deep into sacred geometry and it gets really heady, really complicated. But you don't have to go that far. You can only go as far as you want into some more basic stuff, or you can get into the really deep, complicated stuff. I will also say that I don't understand all of it that I've looked at. Some of it, it doesn't, I can't get it here, intellectually speaking. But I get it here. And for me, I don't know how it works for everybody else, but for me, I think and process and retain information here. I know in my heart and I feel in my gut. And there's something about sacred geometry, even the first time I heard the term, I was intrigued and I perked up. And it has always just resonated with me, right in my heart's knowing. There's something very authentic and truthful and powerful about it. So some of the information I'm going to get into may seem a little bit technical, but I'm really just going over some of the very basic information and trying to do so in a way that's the least convoluted and confusing as I can possibly manage. This is one of the things that I am passionate about, so I wanted to share. So what do I mean when I say sacred geometry? Now you can probably get different answers to that from different sources, but essentially what I'm talking about is a universal language that describes the inner workings of nature as well as the intrinsic order of the universe, the essential foundation of everything. Sacred geometry demonstrates how completely diverse elements can come together and create a whole while still maintaining their individual uniqueness. Everything that exists has an underlying geometric template, and it is said that this links everything to the cosmos. It links everything together. So everything around us that seems solid is actually in a state of vibration. So everything is vibrating, and nature is just full of pulses, waves, motions, rhythms, and cycles, and a vast spectrum of universal energies. And all of these can be defined as vibration or frequency. Frequency can be expressed through number, and number can be expressed through shape and form. This, of course, is geometry. From the individual interaction of atoms to the vast spiraling galaxies, everything that exists is governed by a specific set of mathematical laws. And these laws, These mathematical laws are contained within the uniform division of the circle and the sphere. I'll get back to that in just a second. Not only is our world geometrically structured, but the way we interpret it is also determined by geometry. And what I mean by that is when we smell a rose, it is not the chemical substance of the rose that we are smelling. It is actually the molecular structure of that chemical substance interacting in our senses, in our sense of smell, that creates our interpretation of that fragrance. A scientist can go into a lab and recreate the molecular structure of the rose's fragrance. And the vast majority of people with blindfold would not be able to tell the difference between the real rose and that synthetic because the molecular structure would be exactly the same. Let's talk about the flower of life. The flower of life is a symbol that's over 6,000 years old, and most people recognize it as an ancient Egyptian symbol, though it has been discovered all over the world. And in the different cultures that it's been discovered, for the most part, it's called the flower of life, even when these cultures have not had any direct contact with one another. The flower of life is made up of circles, and each of these circles is the exact same distance apart from one another. This is what I was referring to when I talked about the uniform division of the circle and sphere. Now, that distance between each circle is exactly the same as the distance between tones and halftones in music. And it is also identical to the cellular structure of the third embryonic division. In the womb, there's one cell. It splits to 2, splits to 4, to 8, and so on and so forth. And this is true not just of human beings, of course, of animals and anything with a cellular structure. The fruit of life. The fruit of life consists of 13 circles that are contained within the flower of life. And this structure is said to be a gateway into higher dimensions and worlds. The natural flow would be to go to Metatron's cube next, and you'll see why when I get to it. But honestly, it'll be easier for me to explain everything if I do it a little bit out of order and go to the Platonic solids, which is what I'm going to do. The 5 Platonic solids. The tetrahedron is formed from 4 equilateral triangles. Its elemental association is fire. Its symbolism is willpower, courage, passion, and self-confidence. The tetrahedron relates to the power of creation, and its function is manifestation, increasing vitality, and stimulating action. Next is the hexahedron. This is formed of 6 equal squares. It's like a cube. Its elemental association is earth. It symbolizes stability, structure, productivity, and sensuality. It relates to safety, security, grounding, and self-confidence. And the hexahedron's function is grounding and bringing material consciousness. The octahedron. This is formed of 8 equilateral triangles. Its elemental association is air. It symbolizes mental power, inspiration, and new beginnings. The octahedron relates to the laws of cause and consequence, and its function is integration and balance of spirit and material. Icosahedron. It's formed of 20 equilateral triangles. Its elemental association is water. It's a symbol of emotions, dreams, and intuition. The icosahedron relates to the flow of change, as in water moving from gas to liquid to solid. Its function is transformation, movement, flow, and change. Lastly, we have the dodecahedron. This is formed of 12 pentagons with 30 edges. Its elemental association is spirit. It symbolizes wholeness, divine connection, and completion. It relates to accountability and spiritual consciousness. The dodecahedron's function is spiritual evolution, clearing of energy, and linking to spirit. Now, these shapes are all 3-dimensional, and they can be used in meditation or even in magic. In meditation, you would surround yourself with it. So if you were trying to do a meditation to get more in touch with your emotions or do shadow work, you might want to surround yourself with an icosahedron. If you were trying to manifest something, you might want to surround your spell work or yourself while doing spell work with a tetrahedron. For me, the platonic solids are just one more tool in my spiritual toolbox for me to use in my practice and anything I do on a spiritual level. So the dodecahedron is said to be at the outer edge of our energy field, and thus it is in touch with our highest consciousness. The way it's described is that in our energy field right now, okay, we have our body. Immediately outside our body is the tetrahedron, the triangular one. And then immediately outside is the hexahedron, the square one. And then immediately outside that is the octahedron. And immediately outside that is the icosahedron. Immediately outside that is the dodecahedron. And just beyond the dodecahedron is the sphere that is the void. So the dodecahedron is where our energy field meets spirit, in a sense. And it's extremely sacred. In fact, people who were part of the Pythagorean school, I hate that word. In fact, people who were part of the school of Pythagorean thought, followed his teachings, could actually be executed for even mentioning the dodecahedron out to someone who was not initiated and part of the school. That's how sacred it was. So let's talk about Metatron's cube now. Metatron's cube is contained within the fruit of life, and contained might not be the right word. When you join together the circles, you get Metatron's cube. And within Metatron's cube, you find the platonic solids. Again, by drawing lines between all the circles, you get these three-dimensional shapes. They are all contained within Metatron's cube. So earlier, when I talked about those mathematical laws that govern everything being within the shapes that are contained within the uniform division of the circle and sphere, you have the flower of life, then the fruit of life, then Metatron's cube, then the platonic solids. That's what it's referring to, those primary shapes within Metatron's cube, which of course is within the fruit, which is in the flower, which is the uniform division of circles in the sphere. Metatron's cube is said to be the field of source energy that penetrates through everything in creation. It is said that source energy enters Metatron's cube, expands through it via one or more of the elements, i.e. platonic solids, creating everything in existence. So source, God, goddess, whatever that is for you, is said to direct frequency, energy into this geometric shape. And through that, everything that exists is created via the five elements: earth, air, fire, water, spirit. It is also said that by meditating on the shapes and patterns that exist within Metatron's cube, great insight, wisdom, and knowledge can be obtained. Let's talk about the mer-ka-ba. Mer-ka-ba is actually three words that are hyphenated: mer, ka, and ba. They are from the ancient Egyptian language, and they have their own meanings. Mer is a specific kind of light understood only in Egypt during the 18th dynasty. It was seen as two counter-rotating fields of light spinning in the same space, which were generated by certain breathing patterns. So by breathing a certain way, an individual could create these two counter-rotating spinning fields of light around the body. Ka refers to the individual's spirit. So whoever is doing this breathing exercise, it is their soul, their spirit. And ba is the body or the physical plane. So then, mer-ka-ba is two counter-rotating fields of light that affect the spirit and the body simultaneously. It is said to be the vehicle that takes spirit and body from one world or dimension into another. The mer-ka-ba is an energy field that surrounds the body, and it was said to spin close to the speed of light. Thus, those who were able to see it, I feel it's probably just like auras. Some people see them, some people don't. So those who were able to see the Mer-ka-ba field described it as a saucer shape around the body because it's spinning so fast it no longer looks like the actual Mer-ka-ba. It was said to extend 60 feet out from the body, so of course this would be dependent on the height of the individual, how high 60 feet was. This field was said to expand our view of ourself, as well as connect us with higher levels of consciousness. It was also said to restore memories of our infinite possibilities. So all life begins as geometric form, and all life contains these geometrical structural patterns within, and all life is dependent on geometric form. That's basically what I have to say about sacred geometry. It's, as I said, something that I find to be a useful tool in my spiritual path. And hopefully you got something out of that. Thanks for listening, and until next time, much love and gratitude.